You raise 2 kids alone, give up vacations, nights out, even the good shoes at the store, because you're the one who always puts family first. Then one day, the same child you sacrificed everything for looks at you like a stranger and says, "You don't get to decide anymore." That's not just betrayal, that's erasure. And that's how my revenge story began. Without fire or fury, just a quiet decision to fight back for the one person left who still reached for me in the dark. My name is Mavis Callahan. I'm 63 years old. I live alone in a modest house just outside Salem, Oregon. It's nothing fancy, 2 bedrooms, a vegetable garden, and wind chimes that clink gently in the breeze. That's all I need now. Peace, quiet, something I spent most of my life chasing and rarely had. I raised 2 children, Naomi and Caleb, on my own after my husband left when they were young. I worked as a public school teacher by day, waitress by night, and I never asked for help. I ironed shirts in the early morning, packed lunches at midnight. Every birthday cake was homemade. Every science fair project we built together on the living room floor. Caleb was the firstborn, bright, charming, and stubborn. I covered his tuition for 2 semesters when his scholarship fell through. I helped him get his first car with what little savings I had. When he got married, I sold my wedding ring to pay for the rehearsal dinner. No one knew. I didn't say a word. That's what mothers do, right? Naomi, my youngest, had Junie when she was 29. I remember the moment she put that tiny baby in my arms and whispered, "You're going to be her favorite person." And she was right. Junie and I had a bond that didn't need explanation. We made pancakes every Saturday morning and planted sunflowers in the spring. Then came the accident. A rainy highway, a jackknifed truck. Naomi was gone in an instant. Junie, by some miracle, survived. But everything changed. I didn't just lose a daughter. Junie lost her entire world. So I did what I've always done. I stepped in, no questions, no hesitation. When Caleb showed up at the funeral, he looked hollow-eyed and angry. I thought it was grief. I thought finally he'd come back to the family. He even put a hand on my shoulder and said, "We'll figure it out, Mom." But I should have known better. I gave them everything, and soon they'd try to take what little I had left. The first blow didn't come with shouting or doors slammed shut. It came in the form of an envelope. Thick, official. I found it in my mailbox 3 weeks after Naomi's funeral, tucked between a coupon flyer and a reminder for my property tax. At first, I thought it was something related to the accident. A form, maybe a settlement update. But when I opened it and saw the words petition for guardianship, my hands started shaking. Filed by Caleb Callahan. I sat down right there on the front steps, the late September wind curling through my cardigan. He never mentioned this, not once. In fact, the last time we spoke, Caleb had looked me in the eye at the gravesite of his sister and said, "Don't worry, Mom, we'll get through this together. Junie's lucky to have you." But that petition said something else entirely. According to Caleb, I was no longer in a position to provide suitable care for a minor child due to age, income instability, and mental fragility stemming from bereavement. Mental fragility. I blinked at the phrase like it might disappear, like maybe if I just stared long enough, the page would change. But it didn't. That's what my son wrote about me, his mother, the woman who once pawned her wedding band to pay his electric bill. A week later, we met in person. I asked him why he hadn't told me, why he went behind my back. He shrugged. "You've done enough, Mom. It's time someone else stepped up." "But I wasn't asked to step aside," I said quietly. "You're 63. He snapped. "You're retired, alone." Naomi wouldn't have wanted Junie bouncing between doctor appointments and reading hour at the library while you figure out how to use a damn microwave. It wasn't just cruel. It was calculated. He'd painted me as incapable, invisible. You know, I want to pause here and ask something. Not out of bitterness, but honesty. Have any of you ever felt this? That slow, aching moment when someone you raised looks at you like you're just taking up space? If you have, you're not alone. I'm living proof of that. Back in that moment, I stood still while he listed all the reasons I was unfit. He said I didn't have the energy, the resources, or the mindset to raise a child anymore. Sandra stood behind him the whole time, arms folded, not saying a word, but not stopping him either. They saw a number, 63. They didn't see the years I carried them both through storm after storm. They weren't just denying me custody. They were denying who I had ever been. And that hurt more than anything they put on paper. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't start with silence. It starts when you're still speaking, but no one hears you. For weeks after the guardianship papers arrived, I tried to stay composed. I told myself Caleb was grieving, that maybe this was his way of controlling something in a world that had gone upside down. But then the court granted temporary custody to Caleb and Sandra, without even asking for my testimony. Just like that, Junie was no longer under my roof. My mornings changed overnight. No more small feet pattering down the hallway, no more Cheerios spilled across the table, no more little hands reaching for mine. The house was too quiet, and not the peaceful kind. It was the kind of quiet that feels like punishment. I was given 2 hours a week with Junie, Wednesdays and Sundays, supervised, as if I was some stranger off the street. On those afternoons, I would bring her picture books and a peanut butter sandwich, just the way Naomi used to make them, crusts cut off, a single strawberry on the side. She never said much at first, but kids know. They feel things. Her clothes didn't fit right, her hair was tangled. Once she had little scratches on her arms, and when I asked what happened, she just said, "I fell." But I knew those marks. They weren't from a fall, they were from neglect. I started keeping notes after each visit. Time, condition, what she said, what she didn't say. One day at the park, I asked gently, "Would you like to come stay with me sometime? Maybe for a weekend?" She froze. Her little eyes darted to the chaperone, Caleb's cousin, assigned by the court, and she shook her head fast. "I can't, Grandma." "Why not, sweetheart?" She bit her lip. "They said, if I ask to stay with you, I'll get in trouble." I felt my throat close up. That night, I sat in my kitchen with the lights off and the hum of the refrigerator filling the room like white noise. I held one of Naomi's old notebooks in my lap, the one with doodles on the cover and pages of recipes and school notes. Something fell out. A grocery list. Junie's handwriting next to Naomi's. That's when I knew this wasn't grief anymore. This was erasure. They weren't just trying to take custody of Junie, they were trying to erase me, like I had never mattered at all. The first time I saw the forged signature, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. It was late, past 11 p.m., and I was sitting at my kitchen table with Naomi's old folder in front of me. I'd pulled it out of her dresser the day we cleared her apartment. I wasn't even sure why I kept it. Inside were old receipts, doctor notes, birthday party plans scribbled in her rushed handwriting, and tucked behind a faded ultrasound photo, her life insurance policy. I almost didn't notice it at first, but something made me stop. The signature at the bottom, it looked wrong. Too clean, too smooth. Naomi had a slight slant in her writing, and this was neat. Too neat. I pulled out a birthday card she'd written me 2 years ago and laid them side by side. It was subtle, but I knew. A mother always knows. That was when it hit me. Caleb hadn't just filed for guardianship. He'd changed the beneficiary documents, too. The policy should have gone to Junie, untouched. But something was off. The next morning, I called the insurance company, acting like I just needed help understanding the file. I asked, softly, carefully, if they could confirm who the current trustee of the policy was. There was a pause on the line. "Caleb Callahan, Sock," the woman said. "He filed the change 3 weeks ago, just needed a notarized form and a signature from the policyholder." 3 weeks ago. That was before Naomi's funeral, before the ashes were even scattered. He didn't just plan this, he prioritized it. Before mourning, before his niece, before his sister's memory even had time to settle in the ground. I hung up the phone with trembling hands, and for the first time, not in anger, but in absolute clarity, I realized I had been holding on to a version of Caleb that hadn't existed for a long time. Maybe not ever. He didn't see me as his mother. He saw me as a barrier, an obstacle between him and control. It wasn't about Junie. It was about what Junie came with. That night, I took out a new notebook and began again. This time not as a grieving mother or even a concerned grandmother. This time as a witness. Every cruel word, every oversight, every dollar misused, every bruise on Junie's skin, every document signed too quickly. I wouldn't scream, I wouldn't beg, but I would write. And when the time came, I'd let the truth speak louder than anything they could say. They still thought I was harmless. That was their biggest mistake. After the insurance call, I didn't confront Caleb. I didn't storm into his house or post anything online. I didn't tell him I knew he forged Naomi's signature or that I had receipts showing money being funneled out of Junie's account. Instead, I bought a binder, one with sturdy rings labeled tabs and clear sleeves for every single piece of evidence. I had pictures of bruises, unwashed hair, too small shoes. I had voice memos of Junie whispering things like, "They yell a lot," or "I sleep in my coat sometimes." I had bank statements, itemized purchases, and the name of a neighbor who once saw Junie left in a locked car during a heat wave. And slowly, page by page, I built a case. Rachel, the young attorney helping me, looked through it all and said, "This isn't a binder, it's a war chest." I smiled. "It's just the truth. I'm just organizing it." She leaned back in her chair and nodded. "Good, because when we bring this forward, we won't scream. We'll show them." And that's what we did. I started requesting Junie's medical records, her school attendance, the guardian's spending reports, all under legal rights I still had as her maternal grandmother. Rachel taught me how to be firm but polite, insistent but not aggressive. Meanwhile, I kept visiting Junie. I didn't ask her questions that would scare her. I didn't try to turn her against anyone. I just showed up, every time, with a warm sandwich, with her favorite puzzle book, with a steady voice and soft arms she could fall into. That's what Sandra and Caleb couldn't fake. They could forge signatures, they could lie on forms, but they couldn't fake love, and they couldn't fake consistency. At the park one Sunday, Junie leaned her head against my shoulder and whispered, "You always come." 3 simple words, but they cracked something open in me. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't even about proving I was right. It was about showing up, quietly, consistently, and with purpose, until the people trying to erase me had nothing left to stand on. I had no press. No public platform, just a binder, a lawyer, and a 6-year-old who still reached for my hand every time we said goodbye. Let them underestimate me. They always had. But I wasn't done. I was just beginning to rise. The courtroom wasn't dramatic. No gasps, no tears, no shouting, just the low hum of an overhead fan and the creak of old benches as people shifted in their seats. I sat quietly in the front, hands folded over my skirt, the binder on my lap like a shield. Across from me, Caleb sat flanked by his lawyer and Sandra. He didn't look at me. Not once. Maybe out of guilt. Maybe just out of habit. When the judge entered, everything went still. The ruling came slowly, but clearly. Temporary guardianship is hereby transferred to Mavis Callahan for a 90-day review period. In addition, restitution of $13,600 is ordered to return misused funds withdrawn from the minor's insurance trust. Final custody review will occur pending ongoing evaluations of the child's emotional and physical well-being. Caleb jolted in his seat. Sandra looked like someone had thrown a glass of water in her face. But I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just nodded. Quiet. Still. Steady. Later, as I stepped into the hallway, binder pressed to my chest, I heard light footsteps behind me. Then suddenly, arms, small, strong, clinging to my waist. Junie. "Grandma," she whispered, muffled against my cardigan. "You came back." I knelt to her level. "I never left, baby. Not once." There was no applause, no press, no one to cheer, just her little hand in mine, warm, real. Home. We moved into a small apartment above a bakery downtown, modest but full of light. I repainted her room lavender. We put glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. She laughed again. School, therapy, warm meals, books at bedtime. Bit by bit, we stitched something whole from the ruins they left behind. Years passed like pages turning, and when Junie was 20, she asked me if I'd walk her down the aisle. I cried like I hadn't cried in years, because I hadn't just raised her. I had rescued what they tried to steal, her peace, her safety, her right to choose love over fear. And somehow, in doing so, I rescued myself too. Have you ever been made to feel like your time is over? Like you've already given everything and still, it's not enough? You're not alone. Your quiet, steady presence is more powerful than any noise. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is simply refusing to disappear. If this story touched something in you, even just a little, leave a heart in the comments. We're listening. We always will be.